It shouldn't be a surprise after my last video that the Xeno series has had some rough installments. However, despite a lot of the games being rushed through development by publishers, we still got some amazing masterpieces. These games are the ones I would strongly suggest every person interested in the series play, with amazing stories, characters and gameplay. Let's start with the game that gave birth to the series I love so much. After his initial script for Final Fantasy VII was rejected, Tetsuya Takahashi began work on the game that would lay the foundations for the rest of the series to be built upon. Playing this game, you can see the very first traits of what will become the Xeno series. Despite being the first game in the series, it was in fact the last game I got to play out of the current installments, and I wasn't disappointed. Unlike the Xenosaga trilogy, Xenogears is a complete package, so you get the full story in one go, and oh boy, is it a long one, with over 50 hours of game time. That's about the same time it takes to finish the first two Xenosagas. The game also nails down a series staple in my opinion, having the best mech combat out of all the games, not making them overpowered like in Xenoblade Chronicles X or total rubbish like in Xenosaga Episode 1. Along with this, the battle mechanics promote the use of experimenting with different combinations, a system I much prefer over some of the later games in the series. However, Xenogears is not my favourite Xeno game. Despite the story length, I found myself just wanting the game to end after about the 30-hour mark, and I'm not a huge fan of old games. The graphics of this game in my opinion are pretty outdated, and that's why this game is number 3 on my list. In my last video, I established that the first two Xenosaga games were not the best games to come out of Monolith. However, when it comes to Xenosaga Episode 3, rather than see the series go out quietly, they made it go out with a big bang. Xenosaga Episode 3 takes the best parts from the first two games in the trilogy and does so much more by delivering the final chapter of the epic story of Xenosaga. The games help tie up the loose ends while at the same time providing an enjoyable story by itself. Character models have found a good middle ground between the first two games in the series, and Yuki Kagura is back from Episode 2 to score the entire game this time, resulting in one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. Unfortunately, the game had to cut down a lot of the full motion cutscenes and battle animations, which was a bit of a shame, but in my opinion it replaced this with robust gameplay, such as its battle system. Even if they did go for a more generic one, I still think it is the best battle system out of the Xenosaga games. Overall, I was glad I endured the first two games to get to this masterpiece, and to this day I still wish Xenosaga could someday make a return on modern systems. And finally, the best Xeno game is... It shouldn't be a surprise, being the only one left, but as the game that got me into the series in the first place, Xenoblade Chronicles, in my honest opinion, is the best Xeno game out there, and it might even be one of the best games of all time. Tone down the religious references from the previous games in the series, Xenoblade delivered an easier to follow story, and thus objectively made it the best in the series. The game also saw massive changes to the series layout. Gone were the linear corridors of the early games, replaced with massive plains and structures, which would later go on to inspire the giant open worlds of Xenoblade Chronicles Cross, and the much acclaimed Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I haven't even had a chance to talk about the soundtrack. Similar to Xenosaga Episode 2, multiple composers did the music to this game. However, unlike in Episode 2, the music didn't seem to conflict with one another. Instead, we got what is probably one of my favourite game soundtracks of all time. Overall, Xenoblade Chronicles has gone down in history as one of the greatest games I have ever played, so much so that I played its 70+ hour story twice. Had Nintendo not bought Monolith and helped revive the Xeno brand, we might never have seen this amazing game. Now with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 on its way, it will be interesting to see how this game goes. Will it fail to live up to the hype like Xenoblade Chronicles Cross, or will it surpass the original and become the greatest game in the series? I guess we'll have to find out at the end of this year.